Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Gretchen and today I am here with my penultimate review for the 2024 Booker Prize. And today's pick is Creation Lake by Rachel Kushner. Now this book is marketed as a spy thriller and it follows our main character. And we don't know her real name, but she goes by Sadie Smith. And her mission is, as a spy, she is to infiltrate this group of eco-activists that live in this commune, and they're supposedly trying to kind of mastermind this terrorist plot on a local politician in rural France. And then the book kind of has two different distinct types of narration. So we have Sadie learning about the commune and trying to infiltrate and get on the inside of that commune, but then the other part of the narrative is Sadie intercepting the emails of the founder of the commune named Bruno Lacombe. Now, Bruno Lacombe is not a part of the commune in the sense that he is physically there. He's actually a recluse. He lives in a cave and he's sending correspondence to the physical leaders of the commune via email, and Sadie is intercepting them. And we spend a lot of time as the reader learning about Bruno through those emails as well as Sadie. Now, before I get too much into my review and my thoughts on this book, I want to preface this by saying I really do make a conscious effort on this channel to always find the good in a book. I understand that books are subjective, and if I'm reading a book, it might be a book that I love and you don't like, or vice versa. But I do really like to see books from both sides and try to find, even in books that I don't enjoy, something redeeming about it and find the positive in something that I don't necessarily get along with. But I will be honest and say that this is a struggle for me to do with this book. I have not felt this passionate about disliking a book for a very long time. And I feel so bad saying that because it's on the short list of the Booker Prize. It's my favorite literary award. And for the most part, I feel like this prize gets it right most of the time. But I am so confused by this book, and I am really struggling to understand what it is that I am missing. And maybe that's where I need your help as readers of this book as well, if you've read it and you've enjoyed it. But I really struggled with this one. And if I'm being honest, I think that compared to all of the other books that I have read this year, this is going to be the worst book that I have read this year. And I hate to say that, I really do, because I feel like there is something good in this book, and there are probably ideas and thoughts that were just completely overshadowed by my main reason for disliking this book, and that is my absolute distaste for the main character. So Sadie is the sole reason why I hate this book. I love a good, unlikable character, and I always find myself attracted to or attached to those characters that are unlikable, because for the most part, I really enjoy watching those characters grow. So we meet them at the beginning and they're unlikable, and then as the story progresses, there's eventually some type of redeeming quality or some type of redemption that happens, and that character will grow and develop. I didn't have that with this book. I hated the character from the beginning and I hated her at the very end. There was nothing about her that changed for me, and I kept hoping along the way that those feelings that I was having toward her, I would start to empathize with her. I would start to soften to her, and that unfortunately never happened. And my distaste for her was so strong that I feel like it overshadowed all of the other things that were happening in the book. And even if the book was doing something or it was trying to do something, I could not focus on those other things because I had my blinders on to it, because I could not get past this character. There are so many reasons why I disliked this character, and I think that first and foremost, I didn't like her because she thought that she was this master spy, and everything that she did was perfect. She thought that she was fooling everybody, and she was such an immoral character that she didn't care who she was dragging down, as long as at the end of her mission she came out on top. She willingly destroyed the lives of innocent people to expand her career. That was the first thing that was really shocking to me. And I thought, okay, well, we have a whole new, that was in her past. We have a whole new story that's about to unfold, and she is going to make up for that evil that she did. And then we started to get into her talking about herself, and she had an extremely high opinion of herself. She was above everybody else, not just in intellect, but also in her physical appearance. Part of what made her such a great spy was that she could seduce anybody, could manipulate anybody, because she had large breasts. And the first time that it happened, I thought, wow, that's kind of funny. Like, she's kind of full of herself, but in a very comical way. And the next time it happened, I was like, okay, we already knew that, but it's weird that the author is bringing it up again. And I'm not joking when I say that this was brought up repeatedly 8 times. Because I started keeping track. I got to the point where I actually started to make tallies on my little note card about the book of how many times she was bringing up her breasts and her body, and how she was able to just manipulate everybody because of it. And then not only was it her body, but it was her intellect. She was smarter than everybody else in the room as well. She was so good at her job. Meanwhile, as the story is unfolding, we can very clearly see as the reader that she does not know what she's doing. She is inept at her job. She is actually quite bad, and it does make the reader wonder how she has gotten this far. And the more we as the reader learn, or I felt as the reader, that this character is totally delusional. She has no idea what is going on. And at first, like I said, I thought it was comical and I thought it was funny, but then toward the end, I didn't think it was funny anymore. I thought it was horrible, because her level of confidence was destroying the lives of innocent people. And she was the type of person that if she got to the point where she knew that something wasn't there, she would make something up just to have something to grasp onto. So making something out of nothing. And she didn't care who she was destroying to get to that point. And I just could not get behind her as a character. Nothing changed at all as far as her character arc went. And I feel like as the pages started to go on, every time she said another snarky or snide thing like that, it just infuriated me even more. And I just stopped focusing on what was happening in the story, and it slowly just turned into, how much more can I possibly hate this main character? And that made it a real challenge for me to get through this book. Now, this book is just over 400 pages, and normally I can read a book this size in a few days. But I found that I could literally only get through a handful of pages in a sitting before I had to put the book down. I didn't want to listen to anything that she was saying. And I know that there were important thoughts and ideas that were probably being expressed throughout the duration of this, but that was never what I was focusing on. My focus as the reader was always on the wrong thing. And I feel like it could just be me totally misinterpreting her as a character, or maybe it was just meant to be farce and it was meant to be parody and it was supposed to be funny and I was supposed to laugh about it the whole time, but I couldn't help but see how her delusions were impacting these innocent people around her. And when I say innocent, I know that not all of them were innocent, but there were some very distinct parts of this book where we knew that the characters that she was manipulating and the characters that she was trying to get in trouble or to do something were innocent, and they didn't deserve what they got from her, and she just used them and manipulated them. And it just, yeah, it just got really uncomfortable for me as the reader to watch all of this happen and watch all of it unfold. And you have her thinking that she is getting it over on everybody else, but then you also see that no, she is actually getting kind of played, and she thinks that she is the puppet master, but there's actually someone controlling her as well. And I think that that's where Bruno Lacombe comes into the story, because as she started to focus on his emails and learn more about what he was saying, she definitely started to let her guard down, and then she thinks she is still totally in control, but she has totally lost the plot and she is now being manipulated herself. And that is a part of the book that I did enjoy, but I think what I would have enjoyed more is if we got to the point where she realized that that was happening and she tried to make peace with that. Instead, I think that she still thought at the end that she was the best. And although she may have slipped a little bit, she was still fully in control of everything, when in reality, she wasn't. And I really think that those sections with Bruno Lacombe, when she was reading those emails, there was a lot of good stuff in there, but I couldn't see it through my distaste of this main character. And I think another part of why I really disliked this book is that I read The Mars Room earlier this year, which is another novel written by Rachel Kushner, and I felt very much the same way about that one that I did with this. I felt that the author purposely said things to be provocative, and a lot of the narrative felt really forced. Like the author was definitely trying to get me to feel something, but she wasn't subtle about it at all. She was just beating me over the head with it, and I don't appreciate that. I love authors that can be sly and can plant that seed, and then we eventually start to think those things on our own. And I feel like this author was purposely saying things that were shocking when there were probably more subtle ways of getting the same points across. Another similarity, and this might just further prove that it might just be Kushner as an author. Maybe I'm just never gonna gel with Kushner as an author, but I also felt like with The Mars Room, when it came to women's prison, because that's where that book took place, This book focused a lot on those emails from Bruno Lacombe, and he had a lot of facts that he was kind of dumping in these emails about Neanderthals. So he was living in a cave, and he really felt like we were at a point of no return with the state of the world, and instead of going, blindly into that, he decided that the way that he was going to counteract that was to go back to more primitive ways. And he would talk in these emails about the Neanderthals, and he would give us all of this really fascinating information about them, and it was a lot. So I could clearly see that Kushner did a lot of research about the subject, but at some point I started to feel like, why are we just getting this information dumped on us? Sometimes the information was presented in a very cohesive way and it made sense to what was going on in the narrative and the plot, but other times, like I said, it felt very forced. Like, I am just putting this in to show you that I know this fact about Neanderthals. It doesn't have anything to do with the plot, but I need you to know as the reader that I did this research and I know this, and I want you to know that I know this. And I felt very much that way when I read The Mars Room. She obviously did her research on what it was like to be in prison, and every type of scenario that she had read about, she tried to shoehorn into one book. So you had this one character that had absolutely everything that could ever happen to somebody in a prison happen to, and it didn't feel realistic. It felt very forced and it felt very fake. That is very much how I felt about all the research that she put into talking and bringing up the Neanderthals in this book. And I appreciate a book that is well researched, but I also appreciate a reader that has the, or I should say an author that has the restraint to say, yes, I know this, I found this out for the sake of the book, but it doesn't fit, so I'm gonna leave it out. And I don't feel like she restrained herself at all. She just found a way to dump and just put absolutely everything that she learned into this one book. And I think that's another reason why I did not like this book, because it felt like, although I was learning some things, a lot of it was out of place and I didn't really know what to do with it as a reader. It got to the point where I started the book thinking, okay, I have to remember this because this is going to be something important that comes up later. And then I started to realize that her thoughts are half-baked and they're not actually going anywhere. And once I started to get very close toward the end, we had all of these things that were half-baked, and I knew there was absolutely no way that she was going to be able to close the gaps in all of those things. And I was right. She didn't. There were way too many things that were just left out in the open, and it made for a very unsatisfying read for me. I will also say that I was really disappointed by the marketing of this book. We were promised a spy thriller. As a matter of fact, when they announced the shortlist, they specifically mentioned that this was a spy thriller. If you read the back of the book, there are blurbs here. Hernan Diaz talks about this being a reinvention of the spy novel. We also have Bret Easton Ellis talking about this being a highly plotted, I disagree with that. This was not highly plotted. A fast-paced noir. This was not fast-paced to me either. It was a very slow burn, and I like a slow burn as well, but a slow burn eventually leads to a fire. It eventually leads to something big. This novel did not do that. I kept thinking, okay, well, we have this event, we have the festival, we have this eco-terrorist event that is coming up, and it's going to be something big and something major is going to happen. And in the last 20 pages of this novel, it's just going to totally turn itself upside down down and be fast-paced and be everything I wanted this book to be, and it's going to redeem itself. It didn't. I don't think it could have been less exciting, the event. I mean, it was actually comical what happened. If the point of that event was to make me laugh and shake my head at the idiocy of it, good job, like mission accomplished. But aside from that, I didn't feel that thriller part of it. I didn't feel my pulse pounding. I didn't feel any excitement throughout this book at all. This book was a sedative for me. I mentioned before I could barely get through a handful of pages before I was either so angry at the main character for something else stupid that she did, or I was just annoyed or tired and had to put it down because I was so bored. And I know that there are going to be a lot of readers out there that probably didn't mind Sadie as a main character, or maybe they thought she was funny at the beginning like I did, but continued to think that it was funny throughout, instead of having that emotion turn from funny to just depressing and sad like it did for me. And I'm sure if I was able to keep up that pace, I likely would have enjoyed this novel a whole lot more. Sadly, this was not for me. I definitely don't think that this book served a purpose on the short list, and I know that that might be a controversial opinion, especially if you're a reader that liked this, but I do feel like there were novels in this year's short list that were much more formed than this one. Some of them that didn't make the short list were actually fully formed books that started with an idea and ended with a resolution. And this one just left me confused. It just left me wondering why this book made it. What was the author's overall purpose of it? I think that maybe if I hadn't been so laser focused on my distaste for the main character, I would have picked up on those other things in the book that Rachel Kushner was trying to tell us. I do feel like this book could be talking about what is the point of any of this that is happening, like talking about Bruno Lacombe again. You know, he's going or reverting back to a primitive lifestyle. So are we so far gone that we can't even ever get beyond that again, and the only option that we have is just to revert back to our most basic and primal forms? Maybe that's what the author was trying to say, and I wish that if that were the case, that I could have had a little bit more of a connection with the main character instead of just that sheer distaste, and I maybe could have got through this novel not hating it as much as I did. So if you enjoyed this, I'm so sorry to talk trash on a book that you like. If you didn't like it, then welcome to the club, and I really hope that this book doesn't win. Part of me says that there is absolutely no way that James is not going to win the Booker this year, but James is also shortlisted for the National Book Award, so who knows? I don't know what goes into determining what the winner will be. I obviously don't know what goes into determining what the winner will be if this book made it to the shortlist, but I don't know if the fact that James is now on the National Book Award shortlist, if that's going to change its chances to win the Booker. I certainly don't hope that this makes it, because after such a lackluster Booker year so far, knowing I'm still reading one more book, I'm still reading Playground, I can't imagine what my level of faith will be like moving forward for the Booker if this book wins. But anyway, I'm so sorry for this to be kind of ranty. I'm so sorry I wasn't able to find more of a positive spin on this book, but hey, you know, I like to be honest about my opinions, and if something isn't working for me, it's just not working. And like I said, I think that it may even be less about the book and maybe more about me just not vibing with Kushner as an author in general. But yeah, I don't think I'll pick up anything from Kushner in the future. Maybe if she is longlisted again. Yeah, so like I said, I have one more book to review for you guys. I am about a third of the way through Playground by Richard Powers. I will definitely get that done before the winner is announced. And until we read again, bye.